Welcome to Breaking It Down. I'm your host, Guyer Baylog. I'm here again with Jim Knight and Mike McNamara. We're here to discuss the Saab munitions plant. We did discuss the Grayling expansion. You can find all three of those episodes posted on our Facebook page, YouTube, and Rumble. But there's a lot more going on here than just the Grayling expansion, and both Jim and Mike are here to break it down. So I guess to start us off, Mike, we kind of went over the Grayling expansion. Now, what else is going on here? Because there's a lot going on in Grayling.
Well, like we discussed last time, and we've alluded to it, the Michigan National Guard has lost a lot of soldier training throughput. And what I mean by throughput is the number of soldiers, airmen, Marines, Navy personnel that utilize Camp Grayling historically mostly came out of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio Army National Guard units. And a lot of those units have done have alternate training locations compared to the habitual training locations like Camp Grayling that they used to always use. They stayed close to home, no sense driving. The big maneuver spaces that Camp Grayling had and have aren't necessarily needed for a lot of the Army training requirements as they were back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. So the Michigan National Guard has got a great idea in their mind. The Adjutant General Paul Rogers used to be a SES employee, and the director of back then was TARDAC, now called GVSC, Ground Vehicle Support Command, and that's the Army's big think tank, the nutty professors, if you will, the nutty professors of the research and development world, where they come up with a bright idea and test and develop and research, and that's down in Warren, Michigan, at the old tank plant. Paul Rogers has moved on and retired from his SES Federal Civil Service position and now taken the reins of the Michigan Army National Guard. And so Paul Rogers has got it in his head, and I think sold it to the governor, that Grayling would be the best place in the world to do all sorts of research and development, testing, not soldier training, but testing of R&D, research and development, of all these nutty professors coming up with brilliant ideas. And we don't know really what's happening.
Do we know when they say testing, and I'm sure it's like on purpose that it's vague, what does that even mean? I mean, what kind of testing is going on? Do we even know?
Anything that they can't really do down in an urban setting down in Warren, Michigan. So if they need to fire a new rocket, if they need to fire a new laser beam, like electromagnetic warfare, if they need to do a bunch of tests and research and development on autonomous non-manned vehicles, whether it be air or land, and rumor has it they want to do some in the Great Lakes. And oh, by the way, Saab is built, has a large underwater autonomous vehicle business as well. That we'll get into that later. But I guess my point is, so all of this testing and research and development is being done under the guise of TARDAC, but in reality there's a couple other businesses that are out there that now former Colonel Scott Myers' best friend, lifelong friend, opened up a business called Velocity Management Solutions, Velocity Management Systems, VMS. His name is Steve Jacobs is his name.
Steve Jacobs, there.
And so Steve Jacobs has got pretty much carte blanche. He's the key holder to any company that wants to, civilian company that wants to come to Camp Grayling, has to go through Scott Myers, his old lifelong friend with no background, no experience, but he's got the ability to let them on to Camp Grayling.
So Scott holds the keys to the area.
Scott used to. Scott
used to. Okay.
Was the post commander, and now has been promoted to brigadier general, and now he's the assistant adjutant general for innovations. And if we go back to Camp Grayling, I'll back up. If we go back to the Michigan National Guard's strategic plan, they've sold this, that they want to bring that's what part of the Michigan National Guard's business is they want to bring research and development companies to any of the Michigan National Guard training centers, whether it be Fort Custer, Camp Grayling, or the 3 air bases, Air National Guard bases, being Phillips, Collins, and Alpena, Battle Creek Air National Guard Base down in Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, or Selfridge Air National Guard Base. Grayling's probably going to be the biggest.
But why, you've been in the National Guard, is there anywhere else they could be testing these things other than by some trees and wood? I mean, water? I mean, it seems like a horrible place to test weapons. It's
Horrible place to test anything, because when we're testing, we're not sure of the ramifications, the repercussions. We don't know the second, third, fourth order effects. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. Just during muzzleloading season, the whole entire Range 30 complex, which is the old tank gunnery ranges, which we don't have tanks in Michigan anymore, that was all closed down. Why was it closed down, you ask? Because I know you're going to ask. It's closed down because civilian contractors were there testing equipment and firing munitions on our state training grounds, our state lands. And again, when I say our state lands, almost every ounce of property, we talked about it last time, that the Michigan Army National Guard has control of, has oversight of, they're really just the caretakers, because that's all owned except the McNamara airfield, which is federal land, but everything else is all owned by the state of Michigan, whether it's the DNR, which is the taxpayers, which is by the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs, which is again taxpayer land. All of that land is all Michigan citizen taxpayer land. Now, some old guys in the Guard will say, it's been our property for years. No, it hasn't been. It's all done on a management agreement or a lease or a...
And what is the management agreement?
A management agreement is just a nicer term for a lease, because...
What is their management agreement, though, with Grayling?
The management agreement between... Well, and again, there's 147,000 acres that the Guard has control of, and they're supposed to be the caretakers for it, but really that's all state land, except the airfield. That's all state land, and what that management agreements or leases say is things you can and can't do in it, but it's all open to the public. Now, obviously, 99.9.
But is that even safe if you're testing these new weapons to open it back up to the public? Like, if you don't know long term, who's going to want to come up to our woods? I don't even know.
That's been our argument about the expansion. What we talked about the last 3 weeks is the expansion. We didn't, no one signed up for this. No one knows what those electromagnetic warfare things are going to do, or what these new. It's all been, this whole expansion and everything has been all about these defense industry contractors, the defense industry coming to Grayling and using state land, earning profits, doing favors for old lifelong friends. Or there's another company called IQIMR, and that's just that's a 501 company, and they also have some ability to allow people on Camp Grayling properties or management agreed on lands through range control. I mean, there's still a little bit of process, but there's no oversight. Nobody knows what's happening.
So they're trying to bring this new experimental factory into Grayling, just to add more icing on the cake.
Yes.
Who are the people that kind of control if this comes in, what it looks like, how it's regulated?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. Again, the Michigan National Guard, Colonel Scott Myers, now General Myers, said at the time that he just happened to run across people at a conference, and they wanted to build a munitions plant in Grayling. Now, if you buy that, I got some swampland in Florida I'll let you buy. But, so how it works is Grayling, the Grayling area, and Grayling Township have a land bank, if you will. There's a memorandum of understanding. The DNR owns land just south of town. It's the same land bank that the Aruco plant came out of. It's the same land that the new Kirtland Community College got built on. There's a new trucking company that's building a service and sales center there. And Saab has approached the MEDC to buy this land and build a munitions plant. And so it has to go through a three-step process. One, the DNR has to buy off on it. Two, the Crawford County Economic Development Partnership, which I'll tell you the best as I can, is 11 voting board, all that are appointed. Some are elected officials or municipal government officials, like the city manager, Eric Bajaski, he's on that partnership. A guy named Paul Campo, he's the county administrator, he's on that partnership board. There's a couple elected officials that are on that board. Some of those elected officials are because of their elected position, and some are just because they volunteered to be on it and got nominated and elected on it. But that 11-person panel board, they all need to, follow Robert's rules and make a decision whether it's a good fit.
Is that board open to the public too?
They're supposed to be open to the
Okay.
public, except there's some board members that say, since we're a 501c3, we don't need to listen to the public. We don't need to have any public input. But when you go back to when this partnership was originally made, it was supposed to be all transparent. I can show you slideshows from 20 years ago that'll tell that it's supposed to be transparent, open to the public. But they believe because it's a 501c3, they don't need to publish a lot of their meeting minutes. They don't need to publish notes. They don't have to announce. And that's why a lot of the public hasn't been able to make public comments at these meetings, is because they don't know about the meetings, or the meetings get changed. Like supposedly there's a meeting next week that was bumped up about a week ahead of time because, and they just don't put it in the paper. They don't put it, and something this significant. I don't mean to cut you off, but something this significant that's going to affect the change of Grayling and Crawford County in northern Michigan sure should be open to the public, even if by law they're a 501c3 and they want to hide behind that. Why are they not being transparent? What do they have to hide? Why would they not want public input? And by the way, it probably more unethically they should, and if nothing else, they should at least be neighborly, because a lot of these people, or most of these people that are on the partnership board are all Crawford County residents. I don't think the chamber person is. Well, she's from Lewiston. I don't know where she lives today.
Are they receiving government money?
I can't tell you if I think at one time they did, but I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that the Crawford County Economic Development Partnership even existed until 6 months ago. Never even heard of it.
Now, Jim, is that something that's pretty common for these nonprofits that are working, kind of essentially controlling what comes in and out, to not have any public hearings, any kind of public input? Is that a common thing?
The makeup of these 501c3s, the reasons like they want to do them, obviously for tax purposes, but it exempts them from following a lot of rules for public input, for trying to get information out. When I went to that meeting and I asked, I said, something as significant as this is a turning point in the ecosystems and certainly the look of Grayling, Michigan, or Crawford County, the people should have a voice in this. And one of the comments back was, we don't have to take public comments. And when as an elected official, when you take a position like that, you're looking at people becoming irate because of just how government is today.
How do you get on this board?
From what my experience of it, people are asked by an individual if they would like to be on this board. For instance, like we have a hospital board here, and it's going to operate under a 501c3 because we're in the process of going that route. But one of the representatives is our township supervisor here, and he comes back and he gives the board a monthly report of what took place in these hospital meetings. So because we were owned by the taxpayers, the hospital was, he came here and we took a vote and appointed him as the hospital representative. So the board took action and appointed him in that position. To my knowledge, it is not a paid position. These are voluntary positions as far as I know.
We're getting off topic. As far as the CCEDP, no one can tell me how that really works. No one can tell us. As far as the Jim was talking about the Kalkaska County Hospital.
They're a 501c3, going to be. But going to your original question to me, in this case with these people, it appears that they were asked to be on this board, and I don't know what point they were asked on this board, but it would seem to me, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but you know, you want to pick and choose. You know, if you have the same, you know, desire or the same outlooks on things, what you want to bring into this town, you know, you can have these conversations and say, how do you feel about that? How'd you like to be on the board? I mean, these things happen in these towns because, to be honest with you, you know, there's a lot of people that don't want to be on these boards. And I can understand that. But when, in this case, and this particular subject of Saab, and what power these individuals have, certainly they should receive public input, which I, you know, with my informal poll that I did on Facebook, there was over 700 people who said no to this Saab coming here, and you know, the response was, well, everybody I talked to, you know, was for it, but we haven't seen not one letter that came out of from Lacey Stefan, or not one letter that we've seen that has been in support of this project. We have several that, well, they're you know, went to Lacey Stefan, so he would know, but clearly, I think there are members on that board, this Economic Development Board, that know full well the results of that poll and why they are ignoring the fact that there are citizens, taxpayers, people in this state that do not want to see what's going to happen if you bring a munitions plant here and the potential of what that will bring because of the environmental record that Saab has had across the world. There has been numerous facts, you can just Google those, about munitions plants, and you can see where the pollution is.
And like Mike said, we don't even know what they're going to do, so we truly don't even know how.
Well, at this point, they're
what
talking
they're doing.
shoulder bombs
Yeah.
is what they're talking about.
But they could go from one. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you know, and on that point, there was a recent report that was you know, an environmental report, and it reported on the existing what information they had that day. And the point is, and what everybody's concern is today it's the shoulder bomb. What is it going to be next time? So are you going to demand an environmental impact study on each and every time that the munitions change that the plant's going to make? And after you're set and have all these relationships and jobs that they say they're going to bring here, are they really going to be asked to go through those steps again? And they should, but you know, the way this whole thing has been going, and people have stepped forward saying they're for this munitions plant coming in, elected officials. It just doesn't seem right, the right thing, and how this has been approached. Certainly, this economic board can deny this sale if they would just take the time to get the public input from people, and they would see either by an email or they would see it in the meeting that these people don't want this here. But yet it seems like they're ignoring this, and that's disturbing. You know, just coming from so many, it's just disturbing on how this has been acted.
Especially since these people on these boards are people in the community that seem to be going against their own community. But I wanted to ask, so Mike, we've got essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 different prongs here. Mm-hmm. We've got the DNR, mm-hmm. which is just pushing it forward nonstop.
Because the governor's office and MEDC is putting pressure on the DNR to do that, but yes.
And then we've got that board that you were talking about that runs essentially, that helps get economic development in the area. What's the third board that kind of has control over the situation?
Well, and again, if we back up real quick, the CCEDP is supposed to do most of the legwork, most of the background to see, one, if it's a good fit for the community, two, if, you know, what the whole background behind it was. And I'll tell you that, you know, up until just a few months ago, they just thought it was called Project Raven. They didn't know what
What's Project Raven?
Project Raven is. Saab is the Saab.
So they have a code name
They have
for
a
an
weird
economic development. Wow, that's
Yeah,
special.
Pretty fancy.
Yeah.
Bunch of 16-year-old kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, I guess. But I guess the whole point of it is, it was all done under secrecy, that a lot of the members that were attending meetings had to sign letters of non-disclosure. And again, this is paraphrasing, you know, I mean, if you're writing a whole thesis on this, I'd have to be a lot more in depth, but at the end of the day, Project Raven really was the code name for the Saab bomb plant.
How long have they been planning this Project Raven?
Not very well. I think they've been planning a long time.
You think
but
a few years back, you think? Or ish?
It's almost got to be. If you're going
Yeah.
to spend $80 million,
that's
you'd
a lot of money.
have to.
Yeah.
But and again, they're courting places in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They're courting a couple places in Indiana that we know of. Supposedly, you know, another, you know, half dozen other places that they were considering. But I think when they found out that they have access to all the state land, that was a real key for Saab to come here.
So someone welcomed them here from the state.
And I mean,
And so
well,
on.
and there's all, and again, I don't know all the details of the tax abatements, but there's millions and millions of dollars worth of tax abatements. And at least Lacey Stefan, in fairness to Lacey, he did go out and say, we won't buy off on any of these tax abatements unless you do give us what they normally would get for a fire department, you know, millages. So at least Lacey's done some of the right things for that, for sure. But anyway, so to answer your question, the last prong in that program is Grayling Township. Grayling Township elected officials. We have a 7-person township board. And they also have to buy into
All three have to say yes.
all three of those organizations: Grayling Township, the CCEDP, and the DNR. All have to say yes before any of that land can get sold. And it's getting sold for, they say fair market value, but boy, they're selling at least 350 acres for right around $2,300 an acre.
But being honest, and with how you guys are connected in the community, even if they were paying really good money, would the community still want it?
No.
I mean, they have no idea what they're testing.
I don't believe so. No.
So with the last one being the township board, who are these township officials? Because this is the timeline, this is coming up fast. I mean, we've got weeks, if not less.
We got days.
We got days. So for the people watching this that have said, okay, I'm giving up on the DNR because Whitmer's not going to listen to me. I'm giving up on this organization that doesn't seem to represent me. Now I've just got my elected official. Who do they got to call?
Okay, well, the elected officials that people need to talk to at Grayling Township, and they're all good people. Everybody on that board,
And this is just one decision. This isn't anything
Right.
against any of them.
right, is a good friend of mine, my fishing partner, Lacey Stefan. Joe Smock, lifelong friend of Joe's. Shannon Sorensen. Diane, who is the clerk. Diane, I can't pronounce her last name. Brenda Wargo, who's the new treasurer. And Joanne Michael, my neighbor. And another local resident named Mrs. Southhofer. Do I remember what her first name is? She's.
Can people go on the township website and find these names and find their numbers or their
You can
addresses
find their numbers.
or emails?
You can find a phone number to the township. You can find an email. But I'll tell you, Grayling Township's strange because they don't list, other than the full-time employees, they don't list contact information for their elected officials that I've ever seen. And nor can you find it on the CCEDP, you can't even find the chairman's name anywhere. Where you can't find her, her name's Anita Merchant, but you can't find her contact information anywhere.
So thankfully for the people watching, if they heard those names, know that's their neighbor or so on, so perhaps they can find their own way to communicate with them.
But again, if you go to Grayling Township website, you can at least get Lacey Stefan or Diane or Brenda's number and or email address. They'll have the full-timers listed on the website, just not the traditional elected
And
people.
by voting this down, this township can stop kind of the expansion of the expansion in a sense for
Yes,
Grayling.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct. And again, we'll back up and, we kind of didn't do a great job explaining what Saab wants to do. Saab claims they want to build a 70-man facility to only fire, they want to build a 70-man facility. They want to build a rocket, a shoulder-mounted rocket called an AT-4, and they want to build another rocket very similar to the HIMARS or MLRS rocket system. And they claim that they only want to do final assembly here. So they want to move all the bits and pieces in and do a final assembly. And that's what they want to do today. Claims have been made, well, if they want to do more, or if they want to start mixing their own chemicals and et cetera, then they'll have to go get a special permit. But I don't think little old Grayling Township's ever going to stop a multi-billion-dollar company that's an international company with huge legal teams. I don't think little old Grayling Township's ever going to stop them from doing what they want to do down the road.
Well, and I think another question too for people watching is, if the public is already against this and they're pushing forward anyway, why wouldn't they keep going down the road? There's nothing stopping them already, it sounds like, from a few different things that maybe should have been stopping them.
Sure.
I do want to touch on the economic side of it. So what's their narrative? Why does this benefit Grayling? What are they saying?
Well, what they're saying is it's going to bring jobs. Saab is trying to set up some type of a student program apprenticeship with Saab at Kirtland College. So they're making a lot of promises to the individuals that are hearing their sales pitch about having the kids and having a future here. They want to be part of the culture. So you're talking about bringing in potentially 200 jobs, and that's really, nobody really believes that. I think there's a lot of people that hopes that happens and what that would bring into this into the Grayling community. But you can have another facility here that provides jobs, and Gaylord has done that. Their record stands right there. How many they're open for business there, and the people from Grayling here, a lot of them make that 20-mile trip to Gaylord. So there's been jobs here, that people have taken advantage of by going to, and traveling. That's just the way it is here, and it's a lot like that in a lot of communities. But the economic value we see here does not compute or is acceptable to what we have here. It's the dangers of what this munition plant brings here, and what we have is these ecosystems here that are world class, and we are still reeling from the PFAS contamination. And I don't understand why elected officials, and it's particularly in Crawford County because of all the wells that are poisoned, they can never drink that water anymore. Why you would even consider even bringing in more pollution into an area that's just been reeling with this PFAS contamination, and they're talking about bringing domestic water that's going to be probably $100 million, and that's going to be right out at this 4-mile site too. So if something is to happen in that location out there, and we have some type of that's catastrophic out there, this new $1 million water system that's going to be piped into Grayling, now that's going to be ruined.
Don't you feel, though, for how much money the state government is just sending their way for all this, isn't there something else that could be safer, that could provide just as much, if not more, jobs? If they're dumping millions of dollars into this project, I mean...
Yeah, it's questionable why they are enticing...
But isn't the jobs thing a little bit of I mean, is that truly what it's for? Because they could be doing other things that I think more with more bang for their buck.
Yeah, and I question that too, about bringing the jobs here, and Mike had said there's gonna be some that's gonna go over to Traverse City, so they put the enticement out there that there's gonna be jobs here. And I question whether that's actually factual or, what's gonna happen here. But really, what they really wanna use here is they wanna use the ranges at Camp Grayling. They wanna be out there to be able to test their things out there. There's today the AT4, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, we don't know what that is, and that new pollution that comes out here. You wouldn't even see us here, we wouldn't even have met you fellows out here if this was not a munitions plant, that this was an Amazon distribution center out there that would bring an enormous amount of jobs, good paying jobs, to this community. But they chose up into Gaylord. But the fact is that if you had the right fit for the job, for a company to come in here, this is just not the right fit because of the nature of what it is. It's a munitions company.
But didn't the people already say no to Grayling expansion #1, and now they're going for 2.0? I mean,
yeah, and it's clear. I mean, it was unprecedented what a lot of people seen, and Jack Bergman was one of them. Of just how the nonpartisan opposition was on this, and I think the governor got the message on this, that when we that 74 resolutions that showed up on the state map, it got her attention, and I think what she did is she backed down and had this MOU of this 52,000 acres, but they still just did not get the message. In those resolutions it stated in there they wanted to see no expansion of the camp. They don't want this to be a testing area. So what has taken place now is we're going to go around this, and now we're going to come in the back way, and now we're going to have a munitions plant here and act like it's low key, and that it's just, well, we got Camp Grayling here, it's just, they're going to come in here and just make some shoulder bombs, and it's not going to be a big deal. So that's how it's being sold here, from all the way to the state level here. And there's people that have bought into this. They think this is this is something that Grayling can really use. And there's a number of environmental groups. Anglers of the Saab is one of them, and there's many other groups in here. And there's individuals, and we just don't want to see this in this area. There's too much at stake to bring a munitions plant in here, especially with the environmental record of Saab.
Yeah, and I think what Jim is the soundbite is the risk isn't worth the reward. The risk to the water table, the risk to the environment, and the risk to have this be the foot in the door for the rest of the defense industry. When we talked about the Michigan Army National Guard's strategic plan was to bring industry here, and the governor signed in 2024 Executive Order 002 to give innovators, developers, researchers, and testers access to all of the National Guard training area as their test area. And boy, I bet when the federal government and if the Army Auditing Agency or Inspector Generals dug into that, I'm sure there's probably some questionable accounting practices that need to be met. But I think also we talked earlier, and I hope we can make sure that this is clear. Jim, I, and everybody on the expansion, almost everybody, can't say everybody, but almost everybody, is all behind our soldiers. All about being for the soldier. This is a training area. It's not, you asked before about can they test somewhere else or they can do their R&D somewhere else? Yes. And the Army has plenty of active duty posts, in the Marine Corps, has plenty of active duty garrison areas that are test centers, testing sites, and Army proving grounds. Where that stuff is already done. And oh, by the way, most of those locations are already contaminated and they're never going to be right. They're going to be Superfund sites forever. But when we talk about jobs a little bit, I just want to make sure that every politician wants to hear good things about jobs. And I think every kid in northern Michigan should have the same opportunities that we had. I was very fortunate. I worked for the Michigan National Guard, and had a great career and proud of everything that I've done. And I had some great people that I worked around that made me look good. But at the end of the day, we can take a look at, the National Guard just in the Grayling area. One facility's short 15, 20. They have 15, 20 vacancies right now they could fill. But they can't find anybody qualified or people that will even want to apply. We can go out to Camp Grayling, and they're short, rumor has it, 13, 14 people. Can't get people to apply. When we talked about that Traverse City office thing a little bit, but Saab wants to have an office in Traverse City, and I asked, what jobs we have over in Traverse? Well, engineers and administrators and some senior people want to, would be able to, do their stuff from over in Traverse. And I thought, boy, it sounds like all the blue collar jobs, or a majority of blue collar jobs, will be in Grayling, and a lot of these white collar jobs where engineers, they can't get them to move from Terre Haute or San Francisco or wherever, or Farmington Hills. They can't get them to move to Grayling, but they sure could get them to move to Traverse City. And I'm not so sure if all they're doing is production and assembly at Saab, why they would need engineers. But that's not another story. So I think the 70 jobs that Saab has been saying that's the floor. That's the bottom number is about 70. So does that mean there's 55 jobs or 50 jobs going to be in Grayling? And again, how many kids from Grayling want to go through all the requirements to pass a security clearance to work at Saab? How many kids from Grayling are really going to want to put together munitions when they can go work at a Ruco or Weyerhaeuser or several of the lumber mills that pay the same ballpark as what Saab's paying, especially when supposedly Weyerhaeuser's down 20 people, Ruco's down 20-some people.
But also, who in the community is going to want to test weapons on their woods? I don't know why you'd want to do that on that's your backyard. I don't know why you'd want to test weapons this close to your land.
Well, and again,
if you truly cared about your community.
I agree. And again, for a soldier to go out and pull a trigger on an AT-4 and be proficient, so he or she can go to Iraq, Afghanistan, or wherever else they get sent in this world, in Syria or wherever. I get it. That's doing your civic duty. That's doing what you need to do. Grayling in the northern Michigan area has given up 147,000 acres of our land, and enough is enough. And again, if Saab comes, it's one more step closer to completely turning Grayling in Crawford County, Kalkaska, this whole northern Michigan corridor into a military mall, a military test center, when they can do it in Crane, down in Indiana at the Crane Navy Depot. There's plenty of places they can do it, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, wherever. The thing is, they want to come here because they have no oversight, nobody looking over the shoulder. We can go refer back to that D-Business magazine of May, June 2022, where the contractors are loving it because no one's overlooking their shoulder.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's something that your viewers need to know. Out of anything that they could take out of this interview from us today is the fact that why would you take a risk in an area like this, and the fact what has been the enticement of these defense contractors to come in here, and just like what Mike said, and it states it in the D-Business magazine article, that's a publication that people can find, and it states in there that they have no or little oversight of what they're doing. So they can bring a test, something we don't even know, and bring it out to this 147,000 acres, and of course they'd want to get more land, but they could come out there with no oversight. If an accident happened out there, no one is going to say anything. So there's very little oversight. And we go back to the way the camp has been taken care of, when they can't even take in concertina wire. They have a raft going down the Manistee River in a non-training area. Why? This is the way that the leadership has allowed this to happen at Camp Grayling, and now we're going to allow a munitions plant. Oh, that's all right. You guys can come use this to try out your stuff. this is only the beginning. And the reason why people want to come here, and I'm talking defense contractors, is because there's little or no oversight. And they've been virtually been given the keys to Crawford County to come in here and do these things. People of Crawford County and all the northern Michigan should be very concerned about what's happening in this area, because if you're allowed this to come in, the risk of what we have here is going to be gone. And once it's gone for every generation that's not even born yet and the ones that are right behind us. So that's why this is important for people to understand that a Saab plant coming in here is not the right fit.
And again, we talked about some of the environmental or the financial and economic stuff. Why wouldn't Saab want to come here when they're getting millions and millions of dollars worth of tax abatements? And yeah, they got to cough into the fire department, which, God bless Lacey for making sure we didn't get stuck like we did with Aruco on that one. But my point is, what companies, obviously Michigan offered them better incentives than they did in Indiana or Mississippi or whatever. But they're getting a brand new, roughly $10 million Class A road built from 72 East down to 4 Mile, with the millions of dollars of tax incentives. When we talk about a lot of places, and again, I went to school with a lot of guys that were very successful later on, and talking to them, when they go in and do the same pitch to a little community, and they're going to build a whether it be a machine shop, a large, huge machine shop, machine operation, production facility. Municipalities are, continuing to get stuck with all these tax incentives for the company, and the townships and the counties are the ones that suffer. The road commissions suffer. The manufacturers' growth and expansion is a boom for several years, and just about the time the tax incentives go away, they start dialing down their stuff, laying people off, and they kind of just abuse the local communities. And again, everybody thinks jobs are great, and I think they are too. And I think every kid in northern Michigan should be able to live and work up here where they're raised. But all the infrastructure, that's 10, 12, 14 years of infrastructure that we lose because of these incentives. So, are we any further ahead? I guess there's probably politicians and economists that'll argue that forever. But sure doesn't mean that a bomb plant is the perfect fit for Crawford County, that's for sure.
And so to recap, there's very little regulation. They're trying to bring in a weapons, munitions plant or whatever. Mm-hmm. Very little oversight, and basically only at this point it's all on the citizens of Crawford County to stop them, because boards along the way have approved it, and now the citizens have got to contact these people, and that's the only way to stop it at this point, and they've got to do it quickly.
At this point, if they don't do it by the 6th of January, if they don't write a letter to the Grayling Township Board, we're probably going to be stuck. But I'll leave it with one more thing. That's the biggest thing, is if you're watching this and you really care, take the 10 minutes, look up Grayling Township, and we'll have a link to Lacey Stefan's email. But look up Grayling Township and write Lacey an email and tell them 3 reasons why you don't think this is a good fit for Grayling and Crawford County in northern Michigan. And I think the reasons are, even though there's been a boilerplate economic or environmental assessment, there's too much risk versus the reward. The jobs aren't that great of jobs. It's not that big a deal, and whenever anything is trying to be forced down your throat this bad, and whenever a government agency is trying to do everything they can do to circumvent local systems like they have, there's got to be something stinky about it. And when something's slimy and it feels slimy, it's probably going to taste slimy and it's going to be slimy. So that's huge. Now I'll leave you with one other thing: is there is a huge, powerful environmental agency, nonprofit environmental stewards in the local area, and they have a FOIA that's due back from MEDC, and it was due back week before Christmas roughly, of 9,000 pages. Now 9,000 pages for the Saab manufacturing plant, this bomb plant. I think there's gonna be so much, stuff that we're gonna be able to pick apart and look at, but again, 9,000 pages are coming, but they haven't come up with the FOIA information yet, and I think there's probably gonna be a lawsuit dropped, either tomorrow being the 3rd of January, or maybe by the 6th of January, there's gonna be a lawsuit dropped. So if that doesn't, unless MEDC comes up with a FOIA document, they said it's 9,000 pages.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Jim, for being here. We appreciate it. And again, too, you can find a lot of this information. We're going to have it posted for you on Facebook and everything else. And then please follow, like, and share this video on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube. Get it all over there. And if you do care about this issue, now is the time to make a move.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm gonna make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that, only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm gonna offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's gonna be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.